Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the 1979 F-350 Supercab resto-mod build. Now in the last episode I got a really good comment where someone was wondering if I was going to go deeper into this project than I initially expected because they were surprised that I took the cab off the vehicle. Now let me explain to you why the cab is off. Now first things first, of course it's easier to remove a cab when you have access to a lift and a cart to put it on. Secondly, there's only 4 bolts that hold the whole cab in. Not a huge deal to remove those bolts and lift it up. Obviously you've got a few of those items in the front that you've got to disconnect, but overall pretty straightforward. The next thing, these brakes. It's going to be a lot easier to access the brakes, and I am going to be converting the rear from drums to discs, so it's going to be getting a new master cylinder and a power booster and a new proportioning valve that sits on the frame. Now over here we have the factory air conditioning unit. This gigantic mammer jammer is going to be replaced with an interior unit. Right now you've got your evaporator that sits right here. Well, actually the heating core is right here. The evaporator is right here on the inside, and you basically have a 2-piece air conditioning unit. The new style is going to sit right in here. It's going to be tucked up, taking the place of the interior unit that houses the evaporator. Now this is going to be a lot easier to remove with the cab off of the vehicle. Also, once it's removed, I have to make a new adapter, which is basically just a sheet of metal. I might do some bead rolls in it to kind of match the factory lines, and then have 2 lines in for the heating core and 2 lines in for the air conditioning. So those are the benefits on the cab side. Now for the front end, I'm going to be painting this front radiator support. It's going to get a nice coat of satin black, as well as the inner fenders that we've got over here. Basically, if I can get both inner fenders, this one and then the other one hiding over there, and then that front radiator support all in nice satin black, when you open the hood, you're just going to see nice clean satin black across the board here, and then you're going to have your nice new engine with all the front drive assemblies replaced and clean and looking good, and then a nice Holley Sniper on top with a good air filter. Really going to make it look nice and clean, and it doesn't add that much more time. If I did not remove the front end, I'd have to tape up all these little edges, I'd have to clean it while it's on the vehicle, I'd have to get a toothbrush into all the little nooks and crannies, and it would just be a pain. So, hope that answers your question. The next step that I'm going to be doing right now is removing the chrome fender lips, and I'll be setting those off to the side. They will not be reused because it was only $100 to get those from LMC. Now the other portions of chrome, I could not find Supercab sections, so all of the side trim is going to be retained so that it matches perfectly. I didn't want to get the front pieces and then not have new pieces for the Supercab, because then you'd have really shiny with just polished old stuff. As far as the front end goes, this outer grille section here, the replacement, they make them in aluminum or they make them in steel that it's chrome plated. They're like $560 for these outer shells, so we're going to see if we can salvage that one by just polishing it up. Now the inner grille here, this is plastic. You can see it's not even the same color, it does not match, and it just looks kind of off. Luckily, LMC sells a replacement that is chrome, so I'm going to be ordering a new chrome grille, and then we're going to see if we can polish this up to match. If we can't polish it to match, then we might have to pull the trigger and buy a new one. Now just like everything else on this truck, all the hardware for these chrome strips was totally rust-free. Everything came off fine. I didn't have any bolts break. It was really nice. Now I'm pulling off all these rubber strips here, and I have to take great care when I'm taking these off because I wasn't able to find replacements for them. So I have to reuse those. So I will make sure to clean those up real good. Now here I'm just cleaning up these chrome strips. They're actually aluminum, not chromed steel. And if you saw the Grumman video that I made, you'll know that I absolutely love metal polishing. It's actually one of my least favorite things to do, but the surface area on these is so minimal that it wasn't a big deal. I'm just knocking it out with my air tool and a little bit of medium cut rouge. I wanted to put this chrome out in the sun so you guys could really see the difference. It's looking really nice. Now there's only one dent on this outer grille. I'm not sure how it was caused because it's awfully high on the vehicle, and it's a good dent. I mean, it really dimpled it in there, but I'm working it out slowly but surely. If you notice, my screwdriver there is spinning around like a clock running backwards. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm using a combination of metal tools to get the metal close to where it needs to be, and then I use a bunch of wooden tools. Alright guys, today's going to be a bit of a busy day. What I would like to do is get the touch-up paint for right here and right here. Now in order to get that touch-up paint, I have to match existing paint. Now to match existing paint, what I have to do is figure out exactly what the paint will look like when it's all polished so that they can then match up the polished paint and not this faded paint. So I'm going to polish one of the front fenders, bring in the polished fender, match up that paint, get that paint back here, touch up here, wait for that to cure, and then polish this section, see what it looks like. While I'm out and about, what I'm going to do is take my upholstery, the seats, the rear jump seats and the front bench seat, to my upholsterer Richard and see what he can do with his little magic. So let's get to it. First things first, let's polish that front fender. Now here I'm using that DeWalt variable speed polisher that I love so much. I start off at about 2800 RPM with a medium cut abrasive, and then I end up going to about 3000, and then I do the same thing for the polishing. I go down to 2800 and then up to 3000 after I swap out the polishing pad, which I've got on it right here. And then after that's done, I add a little bit of wax and then just hand wax it. All right guys, I've got the fenders side by side so you can kind of see how it turned out. It's looking really good. Now this section here underneath of the trim was never exposed to UV sunlight. This has been exposed to the Arizona sun for 40 years. So this was our benchmark. This is what I was trying to make this look like, and I think I did a pretty good job. That paint is just really, really nice. So shouldn't have any issues polishing up the other one, and I shouldn't have any issues getting a paint match for this. So they'll probably take some section, you know, like right here, use their little machine, match up that color, and then I'll be able to touch up that cab. So let's get this loaded up. I'd also like to get this chrome loaded up so I can show it to the owner and make sure that that's nice enough for him to not need to have to buy a new one. And then I'll get these seats loaded up and we'll get them over to Richard's. All right guys, I'm here at Rudolph's Upholstery in beautiful sunny Tempe, Arizona, and I just dropped off the seats. He thinks that it'll be about 3 weeks to get these knocked out. All we really had to do was decide if we were going with the original fabric, which the owner decided he does want it. He wants fabric here. He wants the original style marbled vinyl up top here. And then for the headliner, we're picking out this color right here, dark sand. So should be pretty sharp. It's going to be about 3 weeks before this is done, but that's okay. That's about the same time frame that we're looking at on the truck. So should be good to go. Guys, I'm here at Elwood Body Works, the best body shop I have ever worked with. Their master painter in the back, Tony, is matching up some paint for that fender. Let's see how it's looking. Alright guys, so this next clip had music playing in the background of the shop. I can't play any of the audio because YouTube would take the video down, so I'm going to dub over my own voice, and Teddy here is going to dub over Tony's voice. What do you think, Tony?
See right here?
Yeah?
It's too white.
Oh yeah.
It needs more yellow.
Needs more yellow. Dang, that looks good.
I think we got it.
Here's a pro tip for you. If you leave beer behind every time someone helps you out, then there's going to be no shortage of people helping you out. Guys, let me show you something cool here. This is Jose. He's the manager here.
What's up, bud?
And this is his ride. Now this is just powered by like a little 302, right? Just a little small block?
It's a four-cylinder.
It's a 2.3 Pinto engine. This is his 427. This was built by Shelby America. Dude, that's nice. That's nice. All right guys, time to touch up these two spots. Now I did hit this with a little bit of polish the other day just to kind of see what would buff out and what wouldn't. And then this of course had polish from before. So what I have to do is use a degreaser with a toothbrush in here to clean all of the wax off, and then I'll probably use a little acetone. And then the plan right now is to basically dab it with a, not a cotton swab, but something like that, to apply an etching primer to the areas that are going to get the paint, and then I'll tape it up. I'll cut around this edge to try and get it just as close as I possibly can, and then I'll hit it with an airbrush to paint it, and then we'll polish over it and we'll see how it looks. That's the plan. Let's get on it. I'm just using a small paintbrush to apply some etching primer. This is going to help the new paint adhere to the surface. It's also going to help keep it from chipping in the future. Now this airbrush tool that I'm using, this one's made by Posh. I think that's how it's pronounced. I've never actually heard it. I've only seen it spelled out. It's about 60 bucks on Amazon. It's a pretty good unit. It's kind of like middle of the road as far as airbrushes go. I have a 0.5 millimeter tip on it, and the air pressure I was running was around 35 at the time. And I did end up doing a couple of coats. Now, as you can see, when I removed this tape, Tony just matched this color unbelievably. He just did it with his eyes. He had to go in, I think he had to add a little yellow once, and then he had to add a little bit of red, but I just couldn't believe someone did that just by sight. Now to sand this down to try and blend it all together, I'm starting off with an 800 grit, and I use a spray bottle that just has water with I think a couple drops of soap in there to help kind of lubricate the sandpaper and keep it from scratching too bad. After the 800, I then go to 1500, and then after the 1500, I jump right to 3000, and that's the one you'll see here in a minute that looks a bit like a sponge. Now here I'm using that same medium cut abrasive with that DeWalt variable speed buffer. I just love this thing. You do have to be real careful when you're in these tight quarters that it doesn't burn through the paint. But once you get the hang of it, boy, it's a good tool. Ah, the life of a shop dog. This is BC. He's 15 years old. He's just escaping the heat. It's all right, buddy. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys were screaming at your computers or TVs when you saw that I sanded right through the paint that I had just applied. The reason that I didn't leave it as is was I wanted to match the character on the rest of the vehicle. You see, there's still these little bits of not damage, but just kind of normal wear on the truck, and I didn't want to have an obvious repair here and an obvious repair here. So the idea is, from a few feet back, it looks totally fine, and then when you get up close, you could see, oh yeah, this was repaired, but it still has some character to it. Now there's a little bit of an issue with the color transition right here. I was going to use a razor blade and cut the tape really close to this line, but I didn't want to have the razor go through the tape and into the paint, so I ended up just taping it a little bit farther away, thinking that I could sand through this. I didn't quite get it all the way, but I'm not going to mess any more with it right now because I want to wait until I'm polishing the whole rest of the truck. And then when I'm doing that final polishing, that's where I'll touch up those little bits. So for right now, I think it looks good. It looks really good. So moving on to the next thing. Alright guys, I've got a plan for this door dent here. This is a piece of 3/4 inch hardwood plywood that is from a rock climbing wall. I cut it to 4 3/4 inches, which is, this is a good door, which is the distance between the bottom lip here, where the door is at its strongest, and the crease in the door that we are trying to mimic. And if you look, it fits in there absolutely perfectly. So what I'm going to do is put this in the other door, and then I'm going to slowly push down right here to get this portion to push out. That's the plan. I have not put this piece in the dented door yet to see how close we are, so I figured we'd do that together. Wow, this is a pretty good shot. I don't know how well you can tell, but you can see the dimple comes in right there and then pushes in. So I'm going to strike right here, and it's going to push it out right there. And then as soon as this starts to give, we'll have another one right here. And it looks like we've got about maybe an inch of downforce here to go before it'll wedge it in there just right. And then we may be able to even go on the outside, put a piece of wood up against it to protect the paint, and then hammer it a little bit. Let's see. Alright guys, it is looking very nice in there. That's the 4 3/4 inch piece. And there's a little dimple I'm going to point out right here, this little guy. Now I want to get that dimple out as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another piece on top of it. And you see how it's making contact here with the It's like a sound insulator, something to keep the metal from making that wonka 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 metal noise that they make if they're not covered in this goo. I'm going to hammer this next piece in there to see if I can get that little dimple out. And I might end up cutting it right here, making it a little smaller just because I don't want to push too hard on this goo spot. Actually, that is what I'll do. I'm going to cut this right here, make it a little bit smaller, and then I'll wedge a smaller piece in, that way I can push right on that line. Alright guys, let's see if I can get that out of here. Alright guys, that top little dimple right here, that's all but gone. What I'm working on now is the bottom portion here. I've got another piece of this hardwood plywood in there. It's cut to about maybe 3.5 inches. And then this is a 2x4 from who knows what that's already been cut a little bit and ended up being a perfect size to just kind of wedge it in there. So what I'm focusing on is this nice long dent on the bottom. See if I can just get it pushed out enough so that when you look at this line from the side, there's no bowing in, because if I push too hard there, it's gonna make this part pop back out, but then it's gonna make this bottom part stay in there. Hope that makes sense. I don't know, maybe it doesn't. I'm just gonna start beating on it. Let's see what we can do. Alright guys, I think we got it. If it's not finished, I think it's really close. Now notice how beat to holy hell that wood is. Obviously if it was metal on metal, that beating would have been applied to the body. So I ended up tapering that piece of wood on each side so that I could wedge it in there. And here's that piece. This is not regular plywood, this is that hardwood I was telling you about for the rock climbing wall. And then you see on this side how beat it is. Man, that is awfully close. Guys, I am very happy with how this is looking. Much nicer. If I pushed any harder on this little dimple right here, I would risk getting a spider crack right here on the paint and then messing that up. And then if I pushed any harder on the bottom, I could risk splitting the steel down here or dimpling it up here. So I think I'm gonna just leave it, go ahead and give it a polish from here and see how it looks. Guys, I just got the first shipment in from LMC. Well, I guess it's the second. I got these fender lips yesterday. But got the front bumper, got the rear bumper, and then I don't know what's in this box. I bet it's a bunch of little goodies. Let me open it up and see. Ah, this is the kick panel carpet. Let's see how the color matches up. I don't know what the problem was with the old one. Looks fine to me. It's much nicer. Ooh, this is the chrome for the tailgate. Ooh, this is the dashboard. Now this is actually their tan dash pad. Let me show you what he's got on there now. Right now you can see this one is dark brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to match up this paint, and then I'm going to paint this one. The reason I got it in tan was because this is the lightest color, so this will be the easiest to paint. Nice. Well, I still have a bunch more stuff coming. Guys, I had a little bit of time left in the day, so I decided I would get rid of this air conditioning system that's on here, start to make way for the Vintage Air Gen 4 kit. I was considering using this factory setup and then just converting it to R134A. I'm glad I didn't, because it ended up having a whole bunch of twigs and leaves stuck in there, and it's enormous. The Vintage Air kit's going to be much smaller. It'll be almost entirely contained inside the cab. I also had time to pressure wash this. This was at like 7:30 p.m. because it was so hot. Look how quick the water is evaporating from the frame rails. It wasn't bad. There was just a little bit of gunk filled up on it. Getting ready for the lift kit install. Hopefully that'll be in the next episode or two. Guys, you are not going to believe this. It's that one-legged cricket. I call him Cricky. That's crazy. Where'd he go? Hey, that's it. He's still going. Uh-oh. Well, see you later. Alright guys, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Next week is a little bit up in the air. I'm expecting to have the transmission back. I'm also expecting to have the transfer case done. I don't know if the lift kit is going to be here yet. As soon as the lift kit comes in, that'll be fun because I'll be able to strip the frame, get the axles all cleaned up, get that lift on, get those new tires on. Hopefully that's next week. If it's not, what I'll probably do is tackle the body. I still have a lot of polishing to do. And then I've got that last little dent, that one on the back of the passenger side bed. So, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.